Detroit is for sure one of the fashion capitals of the United States. You hear a lot of cities get that claim. Harlem, you hear different places in New York get that claim, but I believe Detroit is one of the best, if not the best, fashion cities in the world. You hear a lot of people talk about fashion. You hear Harlem, you hear London, but you rarely ever hear Detroit. And for me, being here my whole life, I for sure see the influence of fashion in the culture. Some of the fashion trends that we have in Detroit is for sure like the Cartier glasses. Cartiers, I mean, they hit kind of mainstream now. You see them all over, all different type of rappers wearing them. You always hear rappers, they do give credit to Detroit when they talk about these glasses. I think that shows one of the trends Detroit has in terms of fashion. Even when Cade Cunningham got drafted here, he threw the Cardis on.
I love it. And shout out, hold on. Shout out Detroit. Shout out Detroit. I got to buff up, you know what I'm saying? Shout out Detroit.
Oh, you're ready.
Buffed up now. Which camera I'm looking at? I'm in this one?
Yeah, you're in this one right here.
Detroit, I'm all the way in. Detroit Pistons, I'm all the way in. Let's do it.
These glasses at one point in time was so serious in Detroit, people was losing their life over them. All type of jewelry in Detroit is really, a thing. And even if you ever go to a Pistons game in Detroit, they have a swag cam just to show people jewelry in the crowd, not the players' jewelry, not celebrities' jewelry. We just talk about just everyday people that you don't even know these people's name, but they got jewelry on.
Shout out to the Detroit Pistons with the ice cam, man. I seen the Houston Rockets try to do it earlier this year. It just doesn't compare to Detroit. Just watch all the jewelry and diamonds these guys go on. And y'all always talk about, they just setting them up to get robbed. You rob one of these dudes if you want, you're going to end up in a body bag, it seems like, man.
Another piece of fashion that's entrenched in the Detroit culture is furs. Not only furs, but leathers too. I think Detroit just have a thing of coats because it's cold 70% of the time here, so coats is a big thing. But the furs and the leathers, for sure, you see everybody, grandma in Detroit, has some type of fur or into furs or want a fur. The reason I think this is that the fur coat is so entrenched in Detroit culture is because of the influence of Motown in Detroit. You always see pictures of Diana Ross and Aretha Franklin wearing furs. And this has made it stamped into the Detroit culture from the influence of the music industry that was here in Detroit. And I think that's one of the lasting imprints that it left on the city is that element of fashion. It's even some type of group of old men that they get together and they swing their coats. I don't know nothing. I don't know a lot about that. That's 2, 3, 4, 5 year generation before me. So I don't know a lot about that, but they do it. A big reason that I think that Detroit has like our fashion is much different from other cities is just that the weather here is just on another level. You have most of the year the weather is under 40 degrees. You have December, you really have November through March, the weather is about to be under 50 degrees from that point, from those months. So you have a long time to layer on, put different coats on. In other parts of the country and other cities, the weather might get bad for a short amount of time, but most of the time here it's cold out. If you talk to people even much older than me, it's all different type of trends that was popping in Detroit. Whether it's top 10 Adidas, Gucci loafers, Maury Gators. It was all type of trends popping in Detroit in terms of fashion. And I'm not talking like cheap fashion too, high fashion. People in Detroit, when it comes to clothes, is no expense being spared. And I realized this when I back in 2020, I went to Arizona. I noticed there that people did not really care much about the stuff that they had on. I'm not saying people were just bummy, but in Detroit, a lot of times when people step out the house, it's a fashion show. Different events in Detroit is about to be a fashion show. People about to put their best on. Like I mentioned earlier, when people go to Pistons games, it's a fashion show. When people go to school, it's a fashion show. Most of the high schools in Detroit and middle schools, really schools period, is a uniform. On the days where we have free dress, so everybody know, okay, you might have a couple free dress days out the month. Let's say maybe two free dress days out the month. And people had them days marked on their calendar because they were pulling that's the days people were pulling their gear out. Whether it's, I know when I was in middle school, people was really big on the Levi's, the True Religions. So, you know, the True Religions, the Polo, the Jordans, people was pulling that out on the free dress days. And I see in other cities, it's not really like that. Yes, it's different little fashion trends that pop off, you know, in different suburbs and stuff. They got the trends of the water bottles, the Lululemon. And a lot of times when I talk to people that didn't grow up like really in Detroit, not like the outskirts, but really in Detroit, they don't really understand the influence of fashion in Detroit. A lot of times, and I'm not saying it's everybody in Detroit, but it's for sure a part of the culture to be fly, to be fresh, to put nice clothes on, to have gear. You ain't got to spend $1 billion, but people, you definitely know about clothes. And a lot of people might say that might be materialism because some of the obvious poverties might be here in Detroit, and maybe so. Maybe so, that might be some of the reasons, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it is a part of the culture, that fashion is a part of the culture. When I was in school, that's what we talked about, clothes and shoes a lot. What shoes was coming out? What clothes was coming? What clothes were coming out? You know, we got to talk about Supreme. What was happening in the Supreme drop? It was always in the conversation. Clothes and fashion was always in the conversation. Even back in the 80s, from your drug dealers had their trends of what they was into, even to your high-class Detroit lawyers and mayors. You even see Kwame Kilpatrick wearing the Awasan jackets. And that's another thing that was popular in Detroit, the Awasan jackets, the leathers. Fashion is just very entrenched in the Detroit culture, and I don't think it gets talked about enough. Thanks for watching my video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'm out.